Hello everyone and welcome to the first proper video on the channel, and I figured what better way to start things off than by doing a review on the brand new Captain America Brave New World film. Just got back a few hours ago from the theater, so it's still pretty fresh in my mind, so I figured I'd hop on here and give my thoughts on it. Spoilers, it's not very good. For those of you who just want to pop in, see what the guy thinks, there you go. Movie sucks, don't go watch it. But for those of you who want to stay and know why I think it sucks, we're going to dive into that. And I want to start off by saying I'm someone who does not like this whole the characters, the heroes are mantles thing. That bothers me. No, stop it. The characters are who they are. That's who they were created to be. You know, Bruce Wayne is Batman. Clark Kent is Superman. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Captain America is Steve Rogers. So already this movie was going to be annoying to me. I hate that concept, so I was already starting this off with negative feelings. But I figured, hey, I'll go into it as open-minded as I can, and we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, it went about as well as I thought it would. It's worse than even in the comics. In the comics, it's bad enough because you've read these characters for years, sometimes decades, and you get to know them. You get used to certain things they do, how they look, how they act, etc., etc. Seeing that in live action in the movies and even in animation to a degree is even worse. Because you bond with that person, you see them talking, interacting, moving around in the environment. So when you change that up, I'm used to for over 10 years, Captain America being a certain way, acting a certain way, talking a certain way. To see someone else do that, it didn't work for me. It feels weird. I don't like that. Now, I didn't watch any reviews. I didn't read any reviews from any of the reviewers, YouTubers, guys that I normally do. I wanted to go into this as fresh as I could. I didn't want to have any opinions colored or anything like that. I wanted to be as fresh and as focused on it as I possibly could be. Now, I did see a couple of different, tweets and posts and comments saying, oh, this movie's trash, or I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score was, I think, the highest when I saw was, I think, a 51, something like that. And I saw someone even say that this movie is as bad as the Marvels. Now, when I saw that, I kind of went, that's a bold statement, because the Marvels was terrible. It was just utter garbage. And my expectations for this movie were very low, but they weren't that low. And I thought, wow, now I'm very curious. Now I really do want to see it. And I can say that after seeing the movie, I 100% agree. This movie is just awful. The word if I had to sum it up in one singular word, the best way I could describe this word is dumb. This movie is dumb. It's dumb. It's annoying. And it makes no sense. The movie initially starts off, and it feels like great value Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That's the best way I can describe it. It feels like a very poorly written, poorly executed take on Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It reminds me a lot of how The Force Awakens felt like a very crappy reinterpretation or copy of A New Hope. So already out of the gate, that's annoying for two reasons. One, I love Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It's probably it might be my favorite MCU movie. It's definitely one of my all-time favorites. I've loved it since day one, and however many years, 11 years later, I think, I still love it. So when you're basically kind of bastardizing a movie I already love and doing it really it's such a bad job, and you can tell, it's obvious, that's annoying. And then there's also annoying because I feel like, oh, I've seen this movie before, except I'm better, and it makes the movie very predictable. The movie starts off, you see very similar to Winter Soldier when Cap's on the Lumerian Star. He lands with Natasha, and he's going through fighting all the guys because they have this mission to complete, to save the hostages. It's the same thing, except instead of Natasha having to find this file or drive or whatever it was, it's been a minute, they're trying to steal back this sample of adamantium that was stolen from Japan. Because the whole premise is there's this treaty going on. They finally, acknowledged that there's a celestial in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and there's apparently that's how we're going to get adamantium in the MCU. Strange, but okay, at least they're finally acknowledging it, I guess. So there's this whole premise, there's this whole treaty going on, how all the different countries are trying to come together and figure out how they're going to share their different reserves of adamantium. So that's basically what this is. Some of it got stolen from Japan, and Sam is coming in trying to steal it, or I guess recover it. Steal it back is not necessarily accurate. So that's kind of the Natasha aspect. And then there's a scene where he finds out there's hostages and he goes after the hostages. So it's actually Cap's mission from Winter Soldier. And then they even do, because there's that scene in Winter Soldier when Cap is fighting Batroc the Leaper. And they have a really cool fight. They're pretty stalemated. And then Batroc says to him, "Oh, I thought you were more than a shield." And Cap looks at him like, "Okay, I guess I got to show you who's boss." Puts the shield on his back, takes off his helmet, and proceeds to beat his ass. They do that here with Sam, and I don't know who the guy he was fighting with. I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't be bothered. I was rolling my eyes too much because this is just Winter Soldier. So they have that pretty much the exact same exchange. He fights this big burly guy who's bigger than him. They kind of have some witty banter back and forth, and Falcon kicks his ass at the end. Kind of randomly, because he's losing, and then he just wins all of a sudden. Okay, whatever. The movie's very inconsistent with that, too. So then they get the adamantium back. He goes to see Isaiah Bradley. If you've seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I pray you didn't, because that show was absolute garbage, and it turned both Bucky and Falcon into wusses. It made them complete and total idiots, and arguably, I would say the villains in that movie, because they were not heroic at all. Hashtag John Walker did nothing wrong. Anywho, so they go through this spiel with Isaiah, and he introduces his buddy Joaquin or whatever. I can't remember his name. I didn't really care. He wasn't very. He's kind of just there to be like, his sidekick, his Falcon, even though Sam's Falcon, but whatever. So he introduces him to Isaiah. There's some banter and whatnot. And they go to DC because Ross wants Captain America to put the Avengers back together. He wants to get them together because he feels that, with all the stuff going on with the Celestials and all these different crazy things, that the world needs the Avengers, which in Marvel world kind of do need the Avengers, even though right now we don't really know who the Avengers would be in this scenario. But okay. So we can kind of see where they're leading towards Secret War and all that. Isaiah ends up while he's there, he ends up going crazy, and he tries to take shots at Ross. And there's some other security guys in the president's entourage, motorcade, whatever you want to call it, who attack him too. So then the movie's basically trying to figure out, who did this? Why did Isaiah go off the bat? And I'm sitting here watching this going, it's just the Winter Soldier. It's the whole premise of the Winter Soldier, there was some kind of mind control, how in Winter Soldier he had those trigger words. Except in this, which it was so obvious from the get-go, because he sits down and talks to Isaiah, and he's like, "Hey, what all do you remember before this whole thing happened?" And at one point he says, "Oh, my phone was on the first." And he's like, "Oh, that's the issue. It was the phone." Great writing. It's right there in front of you. Thanks for making me insulting my intelligence. But anyway. So they go through that. Isaiah gets locked up. Sam and Falcon go through trying to figure out what's going on. They end up going to this, I forget, it was called area something or other for, I think, prisoners and whatnot. It felt very similar to, again, the scene in Winter Soldier where Cap and Natasha go to that old training camp place of Steve's and meet Arnim Zola. It felt very, very similar. And that's when we meet the big baddie of the movie, the villain of the Captain America movie, the Leader. Is this a Captain America movie or a Hulk movie? which is one of my issues with the movie, which I'll touch on in a little bit. So you see the leader. He basically you find out his plan. It's basically, oh, Ross has been using him to do all these experiments and whatnot after what happened with Hulk and Abomination in Harlem in a movie that came out back in 2008. Because everybody remembers that. I'm a super uber nerd, as you can see. So yeah, obviously I remember these things. I watched these movies dozens and dozens of times. I remember dumb stuff like this. I'm a super nerd. I'm sure if you guys watching are watching this, probably are nerds like me. Or who knows, maybe you're just a normie who just wanted to see. In which case, hi, welcome to the channel. But a lot of, I would say, normies or people who aren't, crazy psycho nerds like me, aren't gonna remember the Incredible Hulk movie, let alone the random sciencey guy who was helping Bruce in that. He wasn't, the actor who plays him, I can't remember his name at the moment. He's a really good actor. And he even did a really good job in Incredible Hulk. And I like Incredible Hulk. I like it quite a bit. I was one of the few. It wasn't really a well-received movie. But he really, even his character, who just felt like generic science guy, his name's Stern. It's like, oh, it's the leader. So we knew that was going to go somewhere. We just didn't know it was going to take like 17 years to get there. But okay, sure, whatever. In the Captain America movie, we'll have the big-time Hulk villain be the villain. Sure, whatever. So they go through, and what do they go for? They end up finding out that Stern has been behind trying to ruin this treaty between the countries. He wants to kill Ross's legacy because he's mad at Ross, because Ross promised him a pardon from everything after he got elected president. And Ross didn't pardon him. Now, keep in mind, the opening of the movie, as soon as the Marvel Studios thing dims out and the movie starts, we see Thunderbolt Ross essentially doing his, I don't think acceptance speech is the right word, but it's determined that he's been elected president. He hasn't been sworn in yet, but he has been elected. And then we jump 5 months later, and he even mentions his 100 days are coming up. So Ross has not yet been president for even 100 days. And Samuel Stern is mad that he didn't get a pardon in those first nearly 100 days. It feels like an impatient child throwing a temper tantrum. Oh, you didn't do it fast enough, so I'm just going to cause a war that could potentially kill millions of people because you didn't do what you said you were going to. Now, granted, I'm not saying what Ross did was right. It wasn't. But it comes, the motivation, it's just so, it's like, I could understand if Ross had been president for years, but he's been president for maybe 3 months, give or take. It feels very shallow. Like that motivation I feel like they should have had this set. Maybe instead of him becoming president, he should have been trying to go for re-election. I feel like that would have been much better because you could think that he's already been there for 16 years prior to him becoming president, pushing 20 years now. I can understand that even more so. Yeah, he's been trapped there for 16 years, but he had to get the whole point and he had to go through all the motions, become president, and do all that. When I found out that was his motivation, it's very specific and drilled in that's why he's mad that he didn't get the pardon. But I mean, granted, we all know Ross wouldn't, but it just feels like within 3 months, really? I mean, I guess it just, to me personally, it felt very weak, very paper thin. So there's this big climactic battle after that where, Falcon figures out what's going on. He tries to talk to Ross. Ross is like, I don't want to deal with this. Your friend shot at me. I'm mad at you, whatever. So they go to Celestial Island, which is what they call the giant celestial in the water in the Indian Ocean, where they're trying to get adamantium because Stern, the leader, I'm just going to call him the leader, even though they don't call him the leader. He's supposed to be the leader. Even though we know that he's behind all of this. He hired Giancarlo Esposito's character. I think his name's Serpent. He's some kind of hitman or whatever. He just kind of felt like he was just there because they needed him to be there. He didn't really have a big impact. It was like, all right, cool, whatever. He hired him to steal the adamantium from the Japanese, and he made it look like the U.S. government did it. He used like the CIA account or something. He hacked that. Or it was like, okay, sure, I guess, whatever. And he's trying. Ross is trying to talk with the Japanese Prime Minister, but hey, this wasn't really us. We're being set up. But he refuses because of all the illegal stuff he's been doing with Stern. He refuses to tell him when all he really needed to do, because there's even a moment where they're on the phone, and he says, "All right, Ross, if it wasn't you who did it, what's the name of the guy who did?" And Ross won't tell him. So could have avoided all of this just by giving him a name and fessing up. But oh well. So they have this big fight. There's jets fighting jets. And then you find out that the way Stern's been doing this, he has this mind control technology that he can use through like the flashing lights in phones. And there's a song that's like the trigger that does it. And he brainwashes a couple of the military fighter pilots and he has them attack the Japanese, which causes this whole big fight. And Sam and the Falcon are there fighting. They're doing their Falcon things. And I will say, this part where they are doing this big fleet naval battle is probably the part of the movie I enjoyed, I guess, the most, because it felt like Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie in his element. You know, he was doing Falcon things. He wasn't, trying to be Captain America. He was just doing the thing he knows best, which was the best part of the movie. Even though there's a bunch of moments in this fight that make no sense, and Sam should have died multiple times over. For instance, they keep harping on in this movie that he doesn't have the super soldier serum, that he should have taken it, blah, 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 even though we already went through this in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But I get it. Nobody watched it because it was trash, so we have to reiterate it in the movie. But then people like me who did see it were like, oh, we got to go through this again. But that's the only story they know. That's why these whole mantle, stupid, woke things are so annoying. Because they have to keep doing, they have one or two maybe stories they can do. They have to keep rehashing the crap. And so there's even a scene in the movie where Sam's like, oh, I should have taken the super soldier serum like you and Steve because I feel like I'm not living up to it, when the strength and whatnot is not what the serum's about. The serum's about making who you are as a person better. The scientist, I think Dr. Erskine, I'm probably butchering that, in the first movie even explains this to Steve. When he's telling him about Red Skull, and Cap's asking him, why is Red Skull like that and why am I like this? He says, because the serum is meant to amplify who you are. Good becomes great. Bad becomes worse. It's not all about the serum. Yes, the serum will give you, the strength, the endurance, the athleticism, the speed, all that enhancement. But it's about the person you are. That's what makes it. Because we see what happened to Red Skull. His face melted off. So they keep harping on that, and they're missing the entire point of the whole super soldier serum in the character of Captain America. It's like they watched the Avengers in the scene where Tony is talking to Steve when they're butting heads on the helicarrier, and he says to him, you're a science experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle. It's like they took that scene and ran with it, which completely misses the point. Even Tony has to learn that. So they have this big naval battle. Sam and Falcon are flying through. Falcon, Falcon as I like to call him, he ends up getting taken out when he's trying to take out these missiles. And Sam takes out the missiles. He's then able to stop all the jets from fight. He takes out the brainwashed American jets. He gets the Japanese jets up. Oh, everything's hunky-dory. And then it really feels like at this point, when I was in the theater watching, I felt like, oh, this is the wrap-up. We're done. This is the big conflict, or is this where the movie's end's gonna be, or is there more? Well, there is more, because Falcon, Joaquin, I believe that's his name. He ends up getting injured because he doesn't listen to Sam, and he ends up going after this one missile that kind of went astray, and Sam's like, oh, I got it, and Falcon's like, no, I got this, and he takes care of it, but he ends up getting severely injured in the process. So he's in the hospital getting taken care of after they got everything settled with, the Japanese and the American side. And Sam's visiting him, and then Bucky shows up. And they have that whole exchange where Sam's like, oh, I should have taken the super soldier serum and all that because I need the strength and all that. And honestly, he should have, because for certain things that happen in this movie, he should not be able to do the things that he does. He's a normal human being. But we'll get to there. So he has his little pep talk with Bucky, and we get everything settled down with the president. President goes to address the people and whatnot. Oh, and while the naval battle is going on, I almost forgot to mention this. Stern is trying to get Ross to transform into the Red Hulk. Spoilers. Even though the trailer spoiled that enough. Because he has these pills that he's been taking throughout the whole movie. And from the very beginning, the moment you see him take these pills, if you've even seen the trailers, you know Red Hulk's going to be in the movie, you see him taking these pills and you're like, that's how it's going to happen. That's how he's going to turn into the Red Hulk. That's what's been doing it. It's so obvious. So you find this out. Stern shows up at this location they're doing this. He sees Sam. Sam is acting all cocky, thinking he's got him. And it's like, yeah, no, Ross is gonna, just watch. And so he basically blows the lid on it. He admits to everything. He turns himself in. And all the press at this press conference starts seeing this and start asking him questions. And Ross is losing it, trying to, quell everything. And in doing so, he keeps getting angrier and angrier because all of his, presidential guard and people, they're trying to shuffle him off. And he's like, no, I gotta stay here. They have to know. And then he finally snaps and turns into the Red Hulk. And it's weird because it felt more like he was getting pushed and poked and prodded at on the naval vessel when Stern was trying to do it there. It felt like he had more reason to transform there than he did at this press conference. Now, you could say it's that on top of that, but it's just, I don't know, it kind of felt strange to me. It felt like we maybe should have had more build up at the press conference, but it almost felt like they were trying to push it along. Like, we need to get this in the movie. So that happens. And Sam shows up in his Captain America costume. They fight. Sam should have died 7 times throughout the whole fight, but he doesn't because, plot. And then he ends up talking Red Hulk down. It very much so reminded me of Age of Ultron. The whole sun's getting real low, buddy thing with Natasha, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That is one of the, normal ways to quell a Hulk's rage. But it felt out of place that it was Sam. It should have been Betty, or it should have been, this part felt like it should have been in a Hulk movie. It should have been Bruce or something. So anyway, he gets him calmed down. He reverts back to Thunderbolt Ross. He basically turns himself in. He resigns from the presidency. He does his time in the office. Sam goes to visit Falcon in the hospital. They have some great jokes. Isaiah gets cleared of all the charges. And so we end on a high note. At least story-wise, because I'm going to tell you what, this movie sucked. It really, really sucked. And it was weird. So that's basically the story of it. It's very basic. It's very, it feels so cobbled together. And it's just, it's not good. It's bad. It's dumb. It's stupid. I've never seen a movie have so much crammed in it with no substance. Stuff just happens, it feels like. And for those of you who may not know, this was reported on a lot, but I mean, a lot of you guys probably aren't like me who follow all this stuff. This movie underwent reshoots a lot. Basically, the entire movie was reshot 3 times. 3 times. And you can tell because I almost feel like I'm watching 3 or 4 different movies. Because the movie starts off, the first, I would say, half of it, maybe first act-ish, feels like I mentioned earlier, great value Captain America the Winter Soldier. It feels like a really poorly executed copy of that film. Then when that's kind of done, and we start moving on to the next part, which it switches up and feels like it's a Hulk movie for the next act and a half. And then there's the bit where we have this naval fight where Sam's trying to get things together with Ross and all. So it feels like it goes back to another different Captain America movie. And then we go back to it being a Hulk movie. And then it's like they realize, oh crap, this is Captain America Brave New World, not Hulk Brave New World. So we gotta swing it back to Cap and end it on Cap so he can defeat the bad guy and save the day. And it feels almost like whiplash going back and forth. You can easily see like each act feels like it's from a different movie. And if this is the best version of all the different filmed ones, this is. I'd hate to see the first couple ones. But that's the basic general premise of a story. And there's so many issues with it. Like I said earlier, I'm not a fan of this whole characters or mantles. The hero is the hero. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Sam Wilson's Falcon. And it bothers me so much, especially with Falcon, because there's all this focus on, oh, we need more diverse characters. We need diversity. When the Falcon was one of the first Marvel characters, for sure, that was black and didn't have black in his name. He wasn't the Black Falcon. He was just Falcon. And he was a great character to the point where the Captain America comic books got changed from Captain America to Captain America and Falcon. He shared the title with them. He was an important character. He was a great character. He's a cool character. I love the character. He was great in Winter Soldier. I think Anthony Mackie nailed it. He made that character fun, exciting, relatable, badass. And so it feels like you're taking away his agency because you don't see Falcon as being legitimate as Captain America. So we have to give Falcon or Sam the Captain America mantle, which is, I hate that so much. So then, in turn, you take the agency from Sam and forever put him in the shadow of Captain America. And the movie even does that. The movie acknowledges this. Because they keep harping on this whole, I'm not Steve Rogers. I'm not Steve Rogers. Like, no, you're not. You shouldn't. You're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be your own character. Be your own character. And there are moments, like when I'm watching this movie early on, when there's a scene where they're in the limo heading to Washington that Ross had called them to, because he invites Sam and Joaquin, and Sam only agrees to go if he extends an invitation to Isaiah. So there's this scene where they're in the limo and they're yucking it up, partying, and it doesn't feel like Captain America. Like, I don't see Captain America when I see Falcon. And this is further emphasized by the movie itself, whether they did this intentionally or not, by having Sam barely be in the costume. He's in the costume the first couple minutes when they have that early on mission where he's trying to recover the adamantium, and then for about the rest of Act 1, all of Act 2, except for the very end in the naval fight, excuse me, he's not in the Captain America costume. He's just not. He's in his civvies with the shield. Again, it feels like they're trying to harken back to Winter Soldier, but even Winter Soldier, you have the scene where he's on the Lemurian Star in costume. He goes to meet Fury because he wants to cuss him out, essentially, for not telling him what the whole plan was and keeping Natasha's mission from him when he's supposed to be mission leader. He needs to know these things so he can properly execute the plan. He's in costume. He goes back to his apartment. We see him a little bit out of costume. After he gets attacked by Winter Soldier, he goes back. He's in costume. They go back and forth. It's not just costume, civvies for half the movie, costume. It almost feels like they don't want him in the costume. So it almost feels like we're playing both. So we're trying to give the people who don't want to see him as Captain America their part, and also trying to give the people who do want to see it their part. But it's weird. Because there are moments where I feel like he should be in the costume. And there are even comments in the movie where characters say, oh, it's not as easy without your gear, is it? And I'm sitting there going, yeah, it's really not. He should be in the costume. Which, speaking of the costume, he starts off in the costume he gets at the end of Falcon in The Winter Soldier, which is the comic accurate Sam Wilson Captain America costume, which, to their credit, it looks very close to what it looks in the comics. I don't like the costume. I think him having that cut, like the Falcon cut off for Captain America, where like it goes, the mask like shows like this, it's here, and then it shows that his head up here, and then he has his goggles and then mouth cut out. It works for Falcon. Seeing that as Captain America is jarring, and then there's all this white and this harsh transition to blue. It doesn't look good to me. That's my art nerd coming out. I apologize. So he starts off in that, And they're very inconsistent with the costume because they remind you, if you haven't seen the show, or if you haven't seen the show in a while, that the costume and wings he has are a gift from Wakanda. So the suit and the wings are vibranium, just like the shield. But they're inconsistent with it. For one, they act like vibranium, like, because it's basically a material costume. It's like a normal, like, cap suit, his other Falcon suit, kind of Spider-Man suit, Black Widow. It's not an armored suit like Iron Man. It's a regular costume. I should say suit, whatever. So they act like half the time it's an Iron Man suit. For example, when he's fighting Red Hulk at the end, there's so many instances where Red Hulk is just pounding on him. Just double-fisted. I know how sus that looks, but we're going to keep going. He's just like smashing his fist down on Sam, and Sam's got the shield up, and he's got the wings like wrapped around the shield, making this like little dome. And it's like, cool. The shield and the wings are going to offer you only so much protection. The suit, you might have shock absorbers. It's only going to absorb so much of that energy. It can't take that much damage, like from a Hulk. Like if Black Panther fights a Hulk, it's not going to go well for him. He's going to still get squished. So when Red Hulk's there, like pounding on him, Falcon should be goo, because he still has to hold that up with his own strength. And like they keep saying in the film, he didn't take the super soldier serum. He's just basic guy. And so there's that where he shouldn't be able to survive it, yet he does. But then at the very beginning of the movie, when he's got the white one, because he switches to a blue one out of nowhere. They don't explain where, oh, it's a backup suit, or, oh, did he just take the white bits off? I don't know. Because in the very beginning of the movie, the vibranium suit, they even say at the very beginning of the movie, it's vibranium, it's a gift from Wakandans, gets cut by a pocket knife. And then he gets stabbed, like right here, with that same knife. There's a big old gash like right here across the star, and then he gets stabbed like right in the side. And I'm sitting there going, a vibranium suit like that, even if it's a vibranium mesh Kevlar weave kind of thing, should be able to stop a knife. Yet later on, the vibranium suit is allowing him to tank damage from a Hulk. What? So there's that bit. And then there are scenes, again, where he's doing things he shouldn't be able to do because he's not super powered. When they're having that naval battle and he's chasing down these missiles. And this isn't the only time they did this a couple times. He throws the shield. And he throws it hard enough, as a regular person, mind you, to, in one instance, bounce the shield off of these missiles. And in one scenario, he throws the shield at the missile and it blows the thing up. He threw it that hard. As Sam Wilson, no super soldier serum. So when he even says later to Bucky, oh, I should have taken the super soldier serum, I was like, the writers think you did. They forgot you're just a regular dude. So that's a big issue, and there's all these inconsistencies, and they go out of their way to have, the fight scenes are terrible, and in those fight scenes, they try to have him choreograph. It feels like they're trying to make him fight like Steve, which he's not. Give him his own fight style, which they kind of do sometimes with his wings and do some things. But I'm watching it, and I'm like, this feels like they're trying to copy Steve's. Give him his own thing. Let him fight like himself. Let him be different than Steve. Stop trying to make him Black Captain America, Captain African American, or my favorite, Captain Black Falcon America Soldier Man. Shout out heel versus babyface for that one. So there's that, and then there are other instances that bother me where physics stops. Physics just does not work. For example, I keep harking back to because there's so many issues. At the very beginning of the movie, we see him flying around at like Mach speed in the costume with the wings being all cool and stuff. And then he lands kind of like softly when he goes immediate from like flying at like Mach speed to just landing softly. And I'm like, where's the shockwave? There should be like some kind of gust of wind or impact or something. And Sam goes, wait for it. And then about 2 seconds later, the shockwave sends all the bad guys around him flying. That's not how physics works. So you're telling me that Sam has super speed now? He's faster than sound? It makes no sense. And then there are other moments with the there are instances where the sound editor forgot, I think, because there are a couple moments where Sam will hit somebody with the shield and there's no impact sound at all. It's just, and if we've seen a Captain America movie, you guys all know, you heard that like boom sound, that very, distinctive sound that the vibranium shield makes. It's just not there. It's like the editors and the sound guys forgot, which is hysterical. And then in one of the fight scenes, we're in that like bunker thing, prison location where they meet Samuel Stern for the first time. There's a portion of the scene that's very Last Jedi throne room levels where Sam and Joaquin are fighting the guys, and there's a moment where these two armed guys, armed with like big old like AK-47 style machine guns, they look at Sam with their guns held like this. They wait for Sam to put the shield up to cover before they start shooting. They waited for him to protect himself when they easily could have just killed him. It's like Rey in that throne room scene all over again. Come on, it's just small little things. Just maybe cut that bit out or speed it up or something. It's lazy, and I get it. This thing was reshot 3 times. 3 times, keep in mind. So I get it. Things are going to get through. But that's obvious. I wasn't even looking for mistakes, and I caught it. This movie is just, it's riddled with issues. And I've never had a weirder experience emotionally watching a movie. Because, like I said at the beginning, which I know I've rambled along, and I appreciate if you guys are still watching this. At the beginning of the movie, I heard people saying about how, it's worse than the Marvels, it's this bad, so bad, this, that, and the other. And I expected it to be pretty bad. Marvel's had a pretty bad track record lately, with the exception of maybe being Deadpool and Wolverine. Fun movie, not a great movie, but I still enjoy it. I love it to death. It was fun. I even have my Wolverine from the movie Marvel Legend right here. I enjoyed the movie that much, and the costume's awesome. Let's, just be honest. And so, my expectations were very low. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of this whole, changing the character, the whole mantle thing. I'm not a fan. So my expectations were very low. And when I heard that, it's as bad as the Marvels, I'm like, I don't know. That's an awfully bold statement. Then I saw the movie and I was like, wow, it was right. And I started off with that in mind. I wanted to keep an open mind. I wanted to be like this. My expectations were low. And I started watching it. And I'm like, all right, it's fine. This is like knockoff Winter Soldier. Okay. It's not offensive yet. They definitely got there. And then halfway through, when it switches from being knockoff Winter Soldier to Hulk, I got very confused. Because it just like switches like on a dime. And I was like, okay, now I feel like I'm watching a Hulk movie. And then, like I said, it almost like the movie realizes, this is a Captain America movie, not a Hulk movie. We've got to go back to Cap. And then I start getting annoyed because it feels like it's going back and forth, and I'm seeing all these issues, and I'm just starting to get very annoyed. And I get to the end credits, and the end credits scene, by the way, was literally just Sam talking to the leader in his cell, and the leader goes, "Oh, you think this is the only world out there? There's plenty of other worlds. I've seen in the probabilities, and they're coming." That, and then it ends. It's not worth. If you do go see this movie, which I do not recommend, hey, that's up to you. If you want to go see it, go for it. I wouldn't recommend it though. It was not a good movie. It's not worth your time to stay for the end credits scene. It really is. It's like 2 minutes and then it's over, if even that. And so when I get to the end credits, I'm sitting there and I go from being annoyed to just being ticked off. I was just incredibly infuriated. Because and the more I think about it, the angrier I get about it. I've calmed down a bit since now because I took a walk, got done there. I talked about it on TikTok a little bit, where I was a bit more animated and more, we'll say, unhinged. And I just basically ran up at this. I wanted to talk about it a little bit more in depth, talk about some of the reasons that drove me nuts about this movie. And basically, it's not a good movie. It's really not. It's more track record of what's been the same with Marvel. There are moments where they have that stupid Marvel humor where they can't even have an emotional scene between Sam and Bucky. They crack jokes and stuff, so they can't even let the emotions lie, simmer for a little bit. Immediately gotta have those jokes, man. Can't be letting people feel emotions too long. And then there's the crappy Marvel CGI. The suit looks terrible. I hate the stupid nanotech. I'm so over this nanotech. Just let them have practical costumes. Stop CGIing everything. They look terrible and they inflate the budget. You know, why? Like, even going back to Civil War, which I love that movie. Tom Holland had a practical, proper Spider-Man costume on set that they just CGI'd over. And now that's all these costumes are. They're like mocap suits that get covered in CGI, and yet they wonder why their budgets are inflated. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Speaking of budgets, this movie, Disney's been trying to like cover their asses with this and say that, oh, this movie only cost 180 million, which after seeing it, I could definitely believe that. But no, with all the reshoots, that's probably how much the reshoots cost. It was like 140, 180, whatever they said it was. This movie, north of 400 million, meaning that this thing's got to make at least $1 billion to break even, probably 1.5-ish to be considered a success. And that's only by maybe a few hundred million, if that. But that's about it. I just wanted to come on, do a proper video finally instead of just re-uploading TikToks and like I have been. I appreciate if any of you guys watch it. I appreciate you guys even more if you stayed this long and listen to me rant like an idiot. It is greatly appreciated. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a like, comment, and I hope to be doing this even more. This was a lot of fun. And again, I appreciate you guys if you stuck around. Peace, love, and take care of yourselves and everybody else. Have a good one, everybody.